All right, we are back here on the Just End the Suffering podcast, talking New York Yankees baseball. Very interesting time of the season for the Yankees. Joining me today, somebody who covers the Yankees for Bronx to Bushville, friend of the podcast, Dan Federico is back. Dan, how are you?
Hey, Mike, what's going on? Thanks for having me back on.
Not a problem. I have to say, as you know, I'm a Met fan, so I've been a little bit more absorbed in the Mets side of things right now, but I've been keeping on the Yankees in the standings. If you were to sum up the Yankees season right now, what do you say the story of the year is at this point?
I mean, there's only one. I was going to go offense right away, going negative, but at the same time, it's crazy because usually when you talk Yankees, it's always they're going to outscore you any day of the week. It's the pitching you got to worry about. But now this year, it's been the complete reverse. I mean, the pitching staff has kept them in these games all year long. Besides injuries, Tyon has had his ups and downs, but by and large, it's been a solid, strong rotation. Bullpen as well has been doing their job. So I think the main issue is how this offense is just completely struggling and where those issues are coming from.
Yeah, I mean, we're recording on Thursday for the series finale against the Rays. They won the last two games, but as you said, the offense has just been non-existent. They've been scoring 3 runs, 4 runs, 2 runs, and it's like with a group, I know they had their injuries with Luke Voigt and Aaron Hicks, but like at the same time, a lot of guys now are just not hitting. Yeah,
I mean, you look up and down the lineup, how many guys are batting below 200? I know people want to say it's a ball issue where they've come back on the juice balls and now they're dead balls, but every team is going through that, and that's something where you have to look a little deeper, and you see that it may be a philosophical issue. I mean, we know the Yankees build their team power, and when those balls aren't as juiced as they were, or whatever the case may be, you're going to see this all or nothing type of offense. And that's exactly what's happening right now. I mean, nobody's really hitting for power there. The team is not, it doesn't look like how it used to. And again, that's what happens when you go after these guys who are really all or nothing, and you base your lineup on people that aren't getting base hits and doing situational baseball. It's more of they're either hitting a home run or striking out. So that's kind of the result you're seeing now.
Yeah, it's also, I feel like the dead ball theory, I feel like it exacerbates the sort of lack of speed this team has. Whereas, like, if these balls not going out of the park, they're having a hard time turning, like, singles into doubles and stuff like that. It's also not helping the offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest issues with the offense as a whole is just athleticism. I mean, they don't have somebody, like you said, who's going to go out there, steal a bag, kind of make something happen on the base pass, especially when you're struggling. You need somebody like that. So they have a lot of these guys that are just big, strong, you think could get it out of the ballpark whenever they want, even though it's not looking like that this year. But yeah, I think a big issue that I've been harping on for a little while is this athleticism. They have a lot of guys that fit the same mold, and unfortunately, it's not speed. It's not somebody who could wreak havoc on the base pass, and that's something they do need.
Yeah, I think the one guy that doesn't fit that mold is DJ Mayhew, and they gave him the big contract, and he's just not hitting the same way he did this year. Like, at what point do the Yankee fans have, like, this concern that DJ is sort of taking a step back? That's a big issue with this offense.
Yeah, I mean, he seems to be bulletproof almost because, Stanton's getting booed the day after he hits 3 home runs. If he strikes out three times the next day, he's going to get booed out of the stadium. Same with Gary Sanchez. Same for a lot of these guys. But, I mean, you see DJ struggling mightily this year. Yes, he's earned his keep with the Yankees. The length of the contract was necessary to keep the dollars down. I don't think anybody had a problem with them bringing DJ back. So it's hard to look and speak in hindsight. But, I mean, yeah, his struggles have really highlighted this team. It's something that you don't expect, especially based off what he's done with the Yankees and even with the Rockies. So when you see the struggles he has, it really compounds the issues that are going on as a whole. I mean, a lot of times he was the engine for this offense, despite, not being that big home run hitter. His struggles have really been highlighted, and when the Yankees fans are going to turn on him, I don't know. Like I said, he's earned his keep, and rightfully so. I mean, he's done a great job in his first 2 years with the Yankees, but yeah, his issues are something that's of a surprise and are a big reason why they're struggling.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also something I think is interesting with them is, I know as I'm seeing the experience on the Mets is like they've had their share of injuries too, but like I feel like they made up for it. They both have pitching well, but the Mets seem like are playing a better defensive brand of ball than the Yankees. I feel like the defense directly, I think, mostly lies at shortstop with Gleyber Torres, and I feel like sometimes he takes his defensive struggles at the plate with him, and it doesn't help, and it makes you wonder with them. You think long term, maybe if you get Gleyber more confident defensively, he gets better on offense.
Yeah, I think there's a clear correlation between the two. Same with somebody like Gary Sanchez. I feel like when he's behind the plate doing a good job, it reflects in the batter's box. But speaking of Torres, I mean, I know in the beginning of the season, his struggles were highlighted, but I did think that, it was Jay Bruce at first base that didn't really help, not having a competent first baseman. And when they brought Mike Ford back, and they have some of these guys playing first base, there were better results, but there are still struggles either way on defense by Gleyber Torres. I'm not as down on him as some people at shortstop, and I get why the Yankees want to give him pretty much every chance they can at that position. He's still a very young player, still extremely talented, but I thought he was really good at second base, and I know bringing in DJ LeMahieu kind of, changed that, especially how well he performed over the first 2 years. They kind of first thought he would be a plug-and-play guy and, come off the bench, but turned into, an all-star caliber player. So they're going to try their best to keep Torres at shortstop. I don't think it's going to change this year, despite the fact that many people may want that. I could see the off season where, there are a lot of names on the free agent market, a lot of big time shortstops. You kind of see where you can move Torres around the infield. I know he has experience at third base as well in the minor leagues. Like I said, I did like him at second base the most. He seemed most comfortable. But yeah, that's what happens when somebody struggles on defense. It gets to their head, could reflect on offense. Now he is starting to pick his offensive game up. And at the same time, by and large, he's been adequate at shortstop for most of the season. So, the reflection is there. But as a long-term solution, I don't know, man. It's going to be an interesting question coming this offseason.
Yeah, it certainly is. I also think another thing that's interesting with this team is also the pitching. You mentioned has been great. Garrett Cole, he's had a little bit of the Jacob deGrom syndrome where he's pitching brilliantly. The Yankees just haven't found ways to win some of these starts. What are you seeing out of Cole so far this year?
Yeah, Cole is literally the exact pitcher that the Yankees signed a couple of years ago. He has been performing extremely well. It's been, that this is exactly what they expected out of him when he was signed to that big money contract. So at this point in the game, this is what you expect from him week in, week out, just to be that ace caliber pitcher, that Jacob deGrom, like you said. And it's been reflecting. The Yankees offense hasn't been getting the runs that they thought, but at the same time, he's been, the ace that they wanted.
Yeah, for sure. He's been great. And obviously the question going into the year, and it's one that I was concerned about, is what do they have behind him in the pitching? And losing Corey Kluber hurts, but they've gotten some good performances from some guys, had some inconsistencies. What do you think about the rotation depth beyond Garrett Cole right now while Kluber recovers from his injury?
Yeah, so, Kluber, it's going to be a while before he recovers. It came out some good news this morning that it may not be as long as they expected, but at the same time, he hasn't pitched in almost 2 years really before this year. He pitched one inning last year. So that recovery was going to be long regardless. Same with Taillon. If you really think about it, Taillon and Kluber would both be probably in the minor leagues if it was regular season, no COVID or anything like that, trying to rebuild themselves up. But besides them, one person that's really stood out to me, obviously, has been Jordan Montgomery. A great start last night. He's had big performances against strong lineups. He's not somebody who, I don't think you could really pencil in as a number two or anything, but right now he's pitching like a number two, and that's all the Yankees could ask for. And at the same time, Domingo Germán, despite his off-field issues, we won't go there, but, he's pitched well in that fifth role as well. So, by and large, like I said in the beginning, pitching has been good. They're probably going to still need to look for some help, I'm guessing, unless they want to go back to Davey Garcia, unless they feel Luis Severino is going to rehab, well, and come back over the summer. And hopefully Kluber as well. So I think as of now, though, you can't be anything but pleasantly surprised and happy with what the rotation has done so far this year.
Yeah, for sure. This is a team that I think they're in a spot where you said, obviously pitching might be a need. They're going to have needs on offense. If you were to pick one spot and say, I need to get an upgrade here, where would you go get the upgrade?
I think the upgrade has to come in center field. There are some holes. You could say first base. You could, pick left field as well with Clint Frazier, even though he's starting to turn around a little bit. But I just don't think you could rely on Brett Gardner, 37 years old, to play every single game in center field. And then, as you saw in the game yesterday, like you said, we're recording Thursday morning. Aaron Judge started in center field yesterday. I don't think that's something that the Yankees want to do anywhere near even a part-time basis. So I think center field is where the upgrade is. Hicks is done for the year. You have somebody in Florial in the minor leagues on the 40-man roster that you could call up. Now, I understand, again, everybody brings up he doesn't have, experience really at AAA. He's just getting his feet wet. Again, the lost season last year was big for him as well. But, he's talented. He's a guy, like we were talking about before, could get something done on the base pass, is a great defender in center field. Those are things that he's ready to do now. And I understand, you want to get his bat matured in AAA, but he's somebody I would look to. And then, of course, there's going to be trades happening. It's early now. There's not a lot of the trade market hasn't really developed as much as people would like to hear. But, there are options that are going to be out there, and I think center field is going to be the way to go.
Yeah, I think Florial is worth a shot. I mean, it kind of reminds me similar what happened in '05 when they brought Robinson Cano up, and then when they were struggling early in the season, nobody thought Cano was ready, and all of a sudden he came in, he stuck, and he became a big part of that playoff team. So you wonder maybe
Yeah.
Florial's that kind of impact with them.
Yep, and I feel the same exact way. I was thinking about the same person, Robinson Cano, left-handed guy from the Dominican Republic. I don't want to say they're exactly profiled the same because that's not the case, but it could be a spark plug. And that's the thing. Florial is a player that brings dimensions that the Yankees really just don't have right now. And he could be an exciting player, again, on the base paths, in center field, on the defensive end. Left-handed bat, he has some power. I mean, he has some raw power that he hasn't really unleashed yet. I mean, he's shown flashes of it in the minors, and we all know that he could take advantage of right field in Yankee Stadium. So, again, I understand the point where he doesn't have much experience in AAA at all. I mean, he's really getting his first taste these last few weeks, but he's somebody who I think you should definitely keep an eye on. The Yankees, they're not one to give up really that much in a trade. Cashman, he's conservative with a lot of these things. So Florial could be the move eventually.
I think he could be. I also think the thing to watch them is like, in terms of a trade, it's like they made very hard to make sure they did not go over that luxury tax last winter, and they did all sorts of moves. They dumped Ottavino's salary to get salary relief basically to the Red Sox. They had a lot of moves where they tried to stay under the luxury tax. Do you think this is going to impact them when they're trying to make a move next month for the deadline? Because this is one where I don't know how much salary they're willing to take on without paying the tax.
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard to predict, right? Because things change as the years go on. As the months go on, we don't know what the Yankee situation is going to be in a couple months as the trade deadline gets close. But by all signs of what's happened in the past, and even we've seen this winter, like you said, the salary dump of Ottavino, I would just assume that they're going to stick with just, being on the conservative end spending wise and, cutting corners where they can. And even a marginal upgrade they may see as just something that's better than nothing. So that's why I can't really expect anything big, at least money wise, happening this year.
That's what would be frustrating for a Yankee fan, because there's a guy out there who's like a perfect fit for them right now in Trevor Story, who makes a ton of money, plays shortstop. You can boost your defense, put Glaber at second right now, and then create opportunities there. But they feel like that's something they're not going to do is because he's going to make too much money.
Yeah, I see. The thing with Story, my only thing, and I understand he's extremely talented, would be an obvious upgrade. The only thing when I think about the Yankees and what they see in things, why would they spend, a trade package where it's going to take, even though he's in a walk year, it's going to take a lot to get him from the Rockies. I could see Brian Cashman just saying, why would I trade for somebody like that when we could just sign him in the offseason and we believe our offense is good as it is? Now, people may not agree with that, especially with the way the offense is performing, but when I think of these situations, I try and, think in the shoes of the Yankees as much as I can, and I could just see them being, why would we spend this trade package with prospects now when we could get him for only dollars in the offseason? So when it comes to Story, that's something I always keep in mind.
Yeah, that's certainly a fair point. I can see the organizational view on this, and I think the fan view is sort of frustration, saying, hey, we are close to winning. Like, this is a division we need help. The offense can't do anything, and we're not going to go get the best guy possible because we want to stay under the tax and knock you up like prospects who may not even have roles for us down the line. That's something I see the Yankee fan having frustration with.
Oh, and it's understandable. It's completely understandable, and it's something that a lot of fans don't want to hear. Now, I wrote not too long ago about, how is Brian Cashman really a prospect hugger? He has made some moves in the past that kind of go against that, but at the same time, there's this clear upgrade, and I just don't think they're going to go for it simply because of, what it would cost. Maybe, Cashman thinks, if we trade these prospects to Colorado, maybe we hold on to them. We could use them in another package and sign Trevor Story in the offseason. Now, it's not good to look ahead that far, especially now, because you want to win every year. So it's kind of tough to say, we'll just wait till next year to sign him, or, we could do something down the road. We're not worried about it this year. So I know it's frustrating and it sucks to hear, but when you just look at the tea leaves, look at the signs just from years past, following the team for so long, it's just pretty clear that I don't think it would happen.
Yeah, I also think it's interesting considering how obviously the change in the Steinbrenners from George to Hal running the team, because you look at the situation there. I mean, George always is like, we want to win every year, we want to do everything we can, and the Yankees have given Cashman a lot more rope. I mean, they didn't go to the World Series the last decade for the first time since the 1920s, since 1910, since they weren't even the Yankees at that point. So you feel like the patience there is just something it's not Yankee fans are not used to.
Yeah, I think it's really because Cashman does what Hal Steinbrenner wants him to do, and I think it's more important to have the bottom dollar, in line instead of what's going on the field. and people don't like to hear that, but that's just kind of what it is. I don't think, I think Cashman's just following what he's told to do. He does, by and large, I think, he makes gambles, and a lot of times they don't pay off, but I think by and large he does a really good job building this team with what the constraints are given to him by above him. But yeah, it's one of those things where I think Yankees fans just have to accept that it's not George Steinbrenner that is making this call. It's Hal Steinbrenner, and it's a different philosophy. It's a different mindset. Sure, he could say, "Listen, we always want to win, but this happened. The playoffs are a crapshoot. Whatever they say every year." But if it was this long, where the Yankees if it was this same exact thing that's going on, but George Steinbrenner was the owner, Cashman may or may not be gone, but someone would be gone, whether it be Boone or he would make a big trade on the, there would be some sort of shakeup that the Yankees just aren't into doing in this current regime.
Yeah, part of me also wonders if the pressure is not as much also this year because they do not have as many people in the stands as they normally would, whereas you have 45,000 people booing if things are not going well. There's less heat than there's 8,000. I know the Mets recently jumped the capacity up to 90% starting, I think, next week, but you wonder maybe if the Yankees let more fans in, maybe the pressure increases.
Yeah, I mean, that could always be a possibility, but at the same time, it hasn't really affected them in the past. I mean, take out these last 2 years, the struggles have still been there by and large. If you want to say it's World Series or bust, they failed every year, right? And there have been fans in the stadium. It hasn't changed anything. It comes a point, especially with this roster, where these guys have been a core for a long time. I mean, this roster has largely been intact for, the last few years, and there hasn't been winning. So it comes to a point where when is the shakeup going to happen? They stayed committed to Gary Sanchez. They stayed committed to Clint Frazier, which a lot of people did praise. They kept DJ LeMahieu, Luke Voigt, Gio Urshela, these guys that maybe you could see them being moved because of their salary, or they may not be perfect fits in the fans' eyes. But the Yankees have kept this team together. This core has been together for a while, and it just hasn't been working out. So I don't know what's going to make a change. I don't think it's going to be fans personally, but you never know. And as the summer goes on and they increase the capacity, then maybe that could be a difference.
Yeah, I think also you're right about this core being together for a while and not getting over the hump. Especially, I think the issue is going to be not with the fans, but more like when they have to start making decisions on paying people. They have a big contract with Stan. They have Cole's big contract. They got to pay Aaron Judge. They have to make decisions like, we want to commit big money to this core that hasn't won a title. Like, they got to decide, do we want to give, like, for example, Gleyber Torres a big contract? We want to move him for something else. It's like those are the decisions they got to make in like a year or two.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys are going to start coming up soon, asking for more money, asking for a lot of money. And that's one of the things that I think, not myself necessarily, but a lot of people have seen with this Stanton deal is that, he's clogging up a lot of space for somebody who's been hurt. Now, granted, he's had great success. I'm not one of those guys who says, he's been an abject failure. I mean, you see what he did last year in the playoffs. He was, just a tremendous force against the Rays and the Indians. So, I mean, he's done a lot of good, but when you're at your DH and you can't really stay on the field, and half the time you're struggling and the other half you're on fire, it's a lot of boom or bust, and that's a lot to be paying in a lot of years for a guy that's like that. And that's taking up a big portion of their salary. So, and obviously Cole as well, but when you see, especially how he's performing this year and his pedigree and everything like that, you kind of, it's worth the money. And at one point, Stan was worth the money too, but when he becomes relegated to DH and a lot of money's tied up there. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of questions about salary, a lot of questions about money. I'm really curious to see how they go about it, because like you said, Gleyber's going to need a contract, and our Judge is going to need a contract, and there's going to be a lot of big money dished out in the coming years. So there's going to be a lot of interesting moves being made in the next couple of years because of that.
Yeah, Stan, I get the argument, but at the same time, I think the fans were upset because he was redundant when they got him, because they had Aaron Judge, a similar type of profile player. I think that's sort of the issue they had, that they're tying all this money to a guy who they had a much younger version of, and they could have used it for a different type of player.
No, I agree with that 100%. I felt the same way when the move was done. Now, listen, they got him at a discount. The Marlins ate some salary. They didn't have to give up much to get him. So it was appealing, and Brian Cashman saw that as, why spend $350 million on a Bryce Harper or Manny Machado when I could spend $275 on a Stan? Now, when you look at it that way, yes, that does make sense. But like you said, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton are pretty redundant in terms of being the same type of player. So it was tough. I saw a stat. They've only played, 35, 40 games total together or something like that since Giancarlo Stanton came to the Yankees, because, one's injured, then the other one, and then one's cold, and then they're hot. it's tough when you have these two guys, and that also reflects on what's going on with the Yankees now, where their offense is struggling because they have a lot of the same profile guys in the line. Whether it be a Gary Sanchez and Aaron Judge, a Giancarlo Stanton, it hurts in that regard. So yeah, man, I see that it was an interesting move, and I get the rationale that was made, but at the same time, like you said, it's very redundant.
Yeah, my last question is obviously the focus should be on this year, because I'm talking about long-term things. This year, I mean, the AL East has been brutal because obviously Baltimore stinks, but Toronto is good. Tampa Bay has come back from the dead. Boston has been a surprise. Like, where do you think the Yankees stand up with that in that quartet of team? Because you figure two are make the playoffs. I feel like with the way this division beats itself out, it might be tough for three to get in the American League.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the AL East is always a dogfight, no matter who's playing. I mean, yes, like you said, the Orioles, they're at the bottom of the barrel, but the Rays, despite the moves they make, they're always competitive and they're always going to be in it at some point. Like they traded Blake Snell, and people thought, listen, it's kind of maybe a transition year, we'll regroup, but no, they're performing extremely well. The Red Sox, I mean, look at them. They're another team that no one expected much out of, but they're performing well. And then the Blue Jays, a lot of people did have high hopes. I personally was of the belief that, they have young guys. Their future is bright. I don't know about this year, but like you said, they're another team that's performing well. You want to believe in the Yankees' talent, but at the same time, we're, in June now, and the struggles that were happening in April are still kind of persistent. They're a hot and cold team. They go on stretches where they're going to win a lot, and then they'll go on stretches where they lose a lot, and that's hard to live by. But I just because of the pedigree, the talent, what they've accomplished in the past, they have proven players that have made runs in the postseason. I'm going to be in the belief that in the end they will be one of these teams in the playoffs, but I think there are going to have to be some adjustments that are made to make that a reality.
For sure. Dan, thanks for all the time. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, how can people find on social media? Keep on some of the stuff you're doing for Bronx to Bushville.
Yeah, so still writing, still editing over there. Full-time job kind of takes away the writing aspect of it, on a full-time basis. But, staying active on Twitter. You could, always follow me on there at Dan J. Federico. And, always posting Yankees thoughts, bunch of stuff. So, trying to stay busy and stay on top of everything Yankees.
All right, Dan, thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Mike. Thanks so much for having me.